Hi, welcome back to my book club. If you're new here, hi, my name is Hunter. I'm a therapist, and together we're reading The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. Today's video is Chapter 9, The Stage Show of Life. If you need caught up on the previous videos, head to the link in the description, and make sure to like this video if you like it. Without further ado, let's get started. Life is like a stage show, and on that stage are all the thoughts and feelings and the world around you. And the show is continually changing from moment to moment. At times, what appears on that stage is absolutely wonderful, and at other times, it's absolutely dreadful. And there's a part of you that can step back and watch that show, taking in the bigger picture. In everyday language, we don't have a good word for this part of you. Harris likes to call it the noticing self, and there's another part of you Harris likes to call the thinking self. This is the part of you that thinks, plans, creates, or imagines. Whenever Harris uses the term mind in this book, he always refers to the thinking self. The noticing self is fundamentally different from the thinking self. For a start, the noticing self doesn't think, it only notices. This part of you is responsible for focus, attention, and awareness. It notices your thoughts, but can't create them. The thinking self thinks about your experience, whereas the noticing self notices your experience directly. For example, if you're playing baseball, cricket, or tennis, and you are truly focused, all of your attention is riveted on that ball coming toward you. That's your noticing self at work. You are not thinking about the ball, you are noticing it. Now, suppose thoughts start popping into your head like, I hope my grip is correct, or I'd better make this a good hit. That's your thinking self at work. And of course, such thoughts can often be distracting. If you pay too much attention to those thoughts, you are no longer focused on the ball. The thinking self and the noticing self. Close your eyes for about a minute and simply notice what your mind does. Stay on the lookout for any thoughts or images. If no thoughts or images appear, keep watching. Sooner or later, they will show themselves. Harris guarantees it. Your mind will say, I'm not having any thoughts, or it's not working. And of course, those are thoughts. As thoughts or images pop up, notice where they are located, in front of you, above you, or behind you. If you tend to hear your thoughts, a bit like a voice inside your head, notice, where is that voice located? Is it loud or soft, speaking quickly or slowly? Once you've done this experiment for about a minute, open your eyes. Feel free to pause the video now to try it for yourself. Hopefully you experienced two distinct but overlapping processes. The thinking self was generating thoughts or images, and the noticing self was noticing whatever thoughts and images appeared. In all those notice and name exercises, your noticing self notices the cognition and your thinking self names it. This distinction between thinking and noticing is important. Hopefully this experiment helped you to separate a little from your cognitions. Your thinking self produced some cognitions, and your noticing self noticed them coming and going. Our thinking self is a bit like a radio, constantly playing in the background. At times, it broadcasts something useful or cheerful, but nowhere near as often as the negative stuff. Unfortunately, there's no way to switch off this radio. Sometimes the radio will stop of its own accord for a short span of time, but we can't deliberately make it stop, unless we short-circuit it with drugs, alcohol, or brain surgery. In fact, generally speaking, the more we try to make this radio stop, the louder it plays. But there is an alternative approach. Have you ever had some music playing in the background, and you were so intent on what you were doing that you hardly even noticed it was there? Well, that's what we're aiming to do with our cognitions. We can treat them like background noise, let them come and stay and go in their own good time, without giving them much attention. When an unhelpful thought pops up, instead of focusing on it, we acknowledge its presence, allow it to be there, and return our attention to what we're doing. If the thinking self is saying something unhelpful, we treat it like music playing in the background. But if the thinking self is saying something useful, then we tune in, pay attention, and use it. What Harris is suggesting here is very different from positive thinking, which is like bringing a second radio into the room and tuning it to a different channel in the hope of drowning out the first one. It's pretty hard to focus on what you're doing when you have two different radios playing two different channels in the background. Notice too that when we let music play in the background without giving it much attention, that's very different from actively trying to ignore it. The more you try to ignore it or not hear it, the more it bothers us. The ability to let thoughts come and go in the background while you keep attention on what you're doing is useful. Suppose you're in a social situation and your mind is saying, "I'm so boring. I have nothing to say. I wish I could go home." It's hard to have a good conversation if you're focusing on those thoughts. So the following technique will teach you how to let your thoughts pass on by while you keep your attention on what you're doing. First, read the instructions, then give it a go. 10 slow breaths. In this experiment, it's essential to keep your breathing as slow and gentle as possible. If you breathe too fast, too deeply, or too forcefully, you may experience dizziness, pins and needles, or anxiety. Let's go through it. Find a comfortable position and either close your eyes or fix them on a spot in front of you. Take 10 slow, gentle breaths. For each breath, first exhale fully, emptying your lungs. Do this for a count of about 3 seconds. Then, once your lungs are empty, inhale gently. When your lungs feel completely full, hold your breath for another count of 3 seconds. And then, once more, slowly exhale for at least a count of 3 seconds. You may have heard of this as box breathing, where you kind of follow a box, where you inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Harris has some additional things. Notice the sensations as the air flows in, and notice what you feel as the air flows out. As you do this, let your thoughts and images come and go in the background, as if they are cars passing on by outside your house. When a new cognition appears, briefly acknowledge its presence as if nodding to a passing motorist, but you don't have to give it much attention. From time to time, a thought will hook you and pull you out of the exercise, so you lose track of what you're doing. The moment you realize this, acknowledge it, then gently refocus your breath. Please read the instructions one more time and pause the video to try it for yourself. If 10 breaths seems like too much, do 8, 5, or even 3. Anything is better than nothing. So how did you do? Most people get hooked quite a few times. This is completely normal. One moment we're focused, and the next moment our mind hooks us and whisks our attention elsewhere. So if we practice this exercise regularly, you'll learn 3 important skills. 1, how to let your thoughts freely come and go without obeying them or struggling against them. 2, how to focus on a task and recognize when your attention has wandered. 3, how to gently unhook from the thoughts that pull you off task and refocus your attention on what you're doing. Like dropping anchor, we can practice this technique anytime, and Harris encourages you to practice it often throughout the day, while you're stuck at traffic lights, waiting for an appointment, during commercial breaks on TV, and even in bed. And if you don't have time for the full 10 breaths, even 3 or 4 can be useful. And remember when you're doing this, it doesn't matter how many times you get hooked. Each time you notice and unhook, you're building a valuable skill. Also, as usual, let go of any expectations. Many people find it relaxing or calming, but yes, you guessed it, this is not the primary goal. At other times, these breaths can likely feel boring, frustrating, or even anxiety-provoking. So naturally, appreciate the relaxation, but please don't make that the aim. And additionally, if you're up for a challenge, Harris proposes 5 minutes twice a day to practice focusing on your breath. For example, you might do 5 minutes first thing in the morning and 5 minutes during your lunch break. I made a note, not doing it at night. This is not meant to be relaxing. Versus doing it at night, you might be deep breathing to try and relax. This is not what it's for. The next part, alternatives to focusing on your breath. Some people dislike any sort of exercise that involves focusing attention on the breath, either because it makes them feel lightheaded, dizzy, or anxious. If this is you, no sweat. Remember the aims of this practice are to 1. Train up our ability to focus our attention, and 2. Treat our thoughts like music playing in the background, allowing them to freely come and stay and go. And we're doing this for 2 main reasons. We get much more satisfaction from the things we do when we give them our full attention. And we handle any challenge better when we are focused. Here are 3 alternatives from focusing on your breath. Number 1, focusing on walking. Go for a 5-minute walk and really notice the things around you. Notice what you can see and hear and touch and taste and smell. From time to time, your mind will succeed in hooking you, and you'll lose track of the exercise. And the moment you realize this has happened, acknowledge the thought that hooked you, then refocus on the walk. Activity 2, focusing on your body. In chapter 17, you'll find a practice called a body scan. We'll go there briefly. Feel free to skip ahead to chapter 17 now. Try it out and use that method if you prefer it. Here are the instructions for a brief body scan. Get yourself into a comfortable position and either close your eyes or gently fix them on a spot in front of you. The aim is to slowly scan your body, fully focusing your attention on the feelings you encounter. As you do this, let your mind chatter away like a radio playing on in the background. Naturally, from time to time, you'll get hooked and lose track of the exercise. The moment you realize this has happened, acknowledge what hooked you, then refocus on your body. Take 15 seconds to notice with curiosity the sensations you can feel in your feet and toes. 15 seconds, then slowly move up to your ankles, then your calves, your thighs, your pelvis, your tummy, your chest, and so on and so forth. If a walk or a body scan is not your speed, Harris suggests focusing on stretching. Focused stretching is another good option. Choose 2 or 3 stretches and do them very slowly and gently, noticing what it feels like when your muscles stretch. Notice the sensations in your body. Notice the sense of loosening, lengthening, and flexibility. Do this for 5 minutes, focusing entirely on the movements you're doing and the feelings in the areas you're stretching. Focus and refocus repeatedly, as described above, while letting your mind chatter away in the background. Something I wanted to note at the end of this chapter, Harris gives a lot of proposed lengths or repetitions. So he'll say, do something for 5 minutes or take 10 deep breaths. And I want to say, doing anything is better than nothing. So if you want to do one of these exercises, but it feels a little daunting to have to take 10 deep breaths or to do an entire body scan, break it into chunks that are manageable. Do 3 deep breaths. Do 1 deep breath. Do a body scan just for your chest up. Do just your legs. Do just your shoulders or your neck. Anything is better than nothing. And with that, thank you so much for reading this chapter with me. Let me know what you thought and make sure to subscribe for next week's video when we tackle chapter 10, Leaving the Comfort Zone. I'll see you next week.